like just like the ether's like out in the world, like all these sounds, and like we interpret that.
So how we interpret sound?
Yeah, we have to have like the faculty of like imagination almost to like have like a life, I think, versus like having music as like a necessity.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the Google definition for music: vocal or instrumental sounds, or both, combined in such a way as to produce beauty or form, harmony, and expression of emotion.
Not too bad.
Okay. So now, I want you to tell me, in your opinion, if this is music.
Yes. Yes, it is music.
Give it a second. No, let it finish. I don't know yet. I don't know if it's music yet.
Okay.
Yeah, like
So,
I was almost hearing the beginning of the song there.
opinion. Is this music?
Yes.
Yeah.
As a drummer,
No. Okay, so we.
this is what I've done.
It's not very.
I think it is. He's. I think it is.
Well, it's the reason it's not very good music is it's not good enough to be music.
Wow. Subjective as.
Erythra, why is it a music to you? A piece of music.
No, so what I define music is a series of tones, pitches, and rhythms combined together in a combination. Any sort of combination you feel. So this has a tone, has a pitch, and has a rhythm. Also, it's like a, maybe I'm biased, but it's like a fundamental technique that I've used to perform music as well. A
Okay.
single stroke roll,
And
so
Mark, why do you not consider this music?
because he's dumb.
It's not really,
It doesn't
music
go.
yet. Yeah, it's not music yet. I guess it's getting there. It's just kind of
Would
like.
you, I was wondering, would you say it's meaningless? Like, it's kind of like, you just strung some words together and, you know,
That's a good.
kind of like hit mashing at a keyboard and getting random words.
So I guess I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's like completely meaningless.
So you're saying it's somewhere
It's
in
not
between.
meaningful enough to be. music.
Okay,
That's.
So it's not quite there
It's
to
not quite
consider
there
music.
yet. Yeah, it's just sounds at that.
Okay, just sound.
It's just sounds.
Okay.
It isn't necessarily.
Okay. Is this music?
You ever have one of those car alarms that just won't stop?
Is that music to you?
I think we need to watch the entire 8-minute video.
Well, it has rhythm, it has rhythm.
Yeah, what,
That's
Huh?
your definition, that is absolutely music.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
It's
I'm
not
with
too
you.
different from
maybe
the
should we
drums.
consider
Yeah.
something?
No,
It's random though.
It is systematic.
Was
So?
this constructed?
Well, I think randomness is like some sort of structure.
So randomness can be music.
So,
Most
okay,
definitely.
now, I already just wanna take it here, so is silence is music then, because it's like ambient, no, I guess not pure sounds, but if we all just stop talking,
Sure.
that's music. It's like, there's a song called like 3 minutes 55 seconds or something, and it's like a full orchestra just sitting in front of them and just not doing anything.
Oh my god.
It's supposed to be the ambient music.
The sounds of silence?
Yeah. Wait, it's a different one, but yeah.
Is music like cancer? No, because
In what way?
it's a complex system. It's a complex system. In other words, it's not the sum of its parts, it's emergent.
That's me.
Okay.
Like cancer. Because cancer, technically, it's not the sum of its mutations. It's so.
That's a
Interesting.
bold analogy.
I like that because like if music is emergent, I feel like yeah, like the cosmic vibration that like is like the sound of like the world doing its thing, like even in silence, like there's still that like vastness to perceive.
I'm a little bit reluctant to call this music as definitely more than I am for the drums, because I think one of the things that's leading me to do that is because the main thing is because the drums we recognize as an instrument for making music, But if we're trying to say what music is just in general. And then also the drums, it kind of changed its beat, it changed its rhythm. This is just one thing, but I don't think that doesn't make it music, but I'm reluctant to call the car alarm
Okay,
music,
so
you know,
would you say
obviously.
that part of your definition for music is that it has to be created and not just up here?
Like, there has to be intent.
Yeah.
So like, there's intent in hitting
Would
a
you
drum.
say that that is part of your definition?
I do think, well, I think, my distinction is that music is created by us. It's not created ex nihilo, it's created. So it's not created from nothing, it's created, just from things that already exist, which is a distinction have you ever read Levinson?
No, I've not.
You haven't heard No Philosophy of Music? Alright, never mind then.
You think
I thought you were bringing
philosophy
that
of
up.
music?
I thought he was bringing that up because he said, because there's
You
a,
don't play.
there's a sort of Neoplatonic philosophy of music. I thought he was alluding to something like
You
that.
don't play Sonic. You're gonna be next.
More cowbell, a little bit.
Still equally as random, I would say, but now a little more.
Well, I mean,
There is a-
even that listener who recorded this wrote, like, it started to grow on me, so maybe it's,
Yeah,
you know.
like it sounds kind of like you could get bumped into that beat.
You
like-
could really,
Honestly, that sounded like a beat, that sounded like it could have been a beat.
Yeah, equally as random though, would you agree?
I mean, in this case, someone made it to sound like that, so they must have had some intention. I mean, it feels like something is going on in the rhythm, and maybe that was the intention.
Yeah, I think in this case though, the car alarm just like broke and then,
The title is Dying Car Alarm.
yeah.
So the battery's dying or something,
Yeah.
supposedly.
So this was just a random occurrence, but sounded kind of like music. So would you say that this is music or?
So I think back to what you're getting, like intent is a key factor, I feel like. So since nobody initiated it with the intent of I think like adding like a expression, I think is like important. Like I'm trying to express how I'm feeling, whether that's like silence or whether that is like drum beating, whether that's like a car alarm. If you are expressing how you're feeling, I think that's like important.
It's a very good point. It did say in the Google definition that it was an expression of emotion, so I don't know if the car is expressing emotion right now, I don't think so, 'cause it's an inanimate object.
Yeah, but like somebody will go like, oh, I want to sample that, and they just like sample and put it to their own thing.
Exactly, like Kanye West does.
Got Kanye West, there it is. Bless.
Is this music?
Oh.
Is that music?
I think
It is, but I don't like it to be.
That's fair.
He's
Is
getting
every
better.
Released song, a piece of music, so is everything that is released by an artist considered music to you? If an artist puts it out there and saying, this is my music, this is what I'm telling you is music to me, is that music?
I don't think that we can count, I personally don't think we can count everything as music. And I think that there's different, I think there's different, tenets and, of music and ways that we, distinguish between better or worse music or what does constitute music. And some musical styles exemplify these things higher or more, in my opinion, than others.
Does anyone believe that every released song is music?
Sorry, can you say that again? Every release song? Is that what you said?
Every song that's just put out there to the public
Oh.
and from an artist.
Well, I do think that. I don't think it has to always be public, but I do think that, yeah, everything that artist says, this is my music, yeah, I would say so.
So Max made an interesting point earlier about songs that are silent, and this is called The Ballad of Richard Nixon by John Denver. The volume is still on. The video is gone. That's the song. That's a released piece of music.
Oh, no.
That's expressing some sort of emotion because of the title, The Ballad of Richard Nixon. He's probably saying something politically, maybe, I don't know, but is that music?
I don't think so.
Just
Yeah.
silence.
But you were saying earlier it had to have pitch, tone,
That's what I was,
those elements. This doesn't have any of those.
well, it definitely has rhythm, I know that for sure. No, it does have rhythm.
Does it have rhythm?
Like I can turn that into sheet music, you know? It's just like it has rhythm, like space between notes is also like a rhythm. So like little rhythms are just spaces between
But there
notes,
are no
right?
notes.
So you just have space. That's still rhythm.
I
But
mean,
if
you
it's-
have an empty staff, but you already have that.
But
When I
space
do
between
Yeah.
rhythms implies that
No,
there's like a space between things that you could hear. I mean, you click your silence, you click something, you hear silence. It seems like I don't see it the space because it's like unless you're. I mean, there's no space between two things as you hear silence through and through. So there's doesn't seem to be a space between things.
But
Like maybe if there would have been like one note at the beginning and then like one note at the end, that might be a little different, but this just seems like nothing to me,
Okay, so silence, Steve,
as far as music.
cannot be music.
See, okay,
It's
so that's
just-
what I'm wondering is like, what exactly did you record and release? Like, how did you like purchase this? Like, how'd you get a copy of the silence? Like,
As in copyrighted.
like.
Copyrighted.
I don't know. It looks like he released it like in Japan or something.
So like, is there just like an empty track like on the? I mean, I feel like I didn't know you could even record that. I mean, I guess.
I think I heard about this, yeah.
Thing going.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, in that case, now we're saying, so he's recording something
You
still.
recorded.
So it's not actually silence, it's
Well,
like the ambient, like,
yeah.
noise, whatever is happening in the room.
We
Or
also
like
don't
going back
know,
to
like-
what you're talking about, like like you said Ohm, or like the universe doing its thing, kind of, like, so it's still something, we're saying, it's
But
not
that's what
just
we call
nothing.
silence.
Oh, it's, okay. So,
It probably went through some production also, maybe to like really drop the silence, cause maybe they like caught something and.
Like the
just,
mics,
maybe
yeah.
someone's like moved a paper or something that got caught, they like. So it even went through production maybe and got mastered, like.
Maybe we have to go back to the definition of music.
Oh, no. I do that.
I know, oh.
Is the clicker dead?
No, but I think when I started the YouTube videos, I was told.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. If only.
Wait, is no sound
A way to produce beauty, form, harmony, and expression of emotion.
Okay, it has expression of emotion. Harmony, well, what do you mean by it?
What emotion exactly do you get out of that song? The Ballad of Richard Nixon.
I got kind of confusion that there's supposed to be a song, a ballad, and there's no sound in it whatsoever. So that might have been my emotion.
So do you think song titles can impact emotion?
Yes.
Yes, it definitely sets the context, like, when you mean silence, it could be like this bad repressive silence, like, there is no ballad because silence can be a form of evil too.
Okay, so if this song was called The Ballad of My Depression, then it would have a completely different tone, you think? Just silence.
What was the song before that? No.
Lil Pump?
Right, like
No,
imagine.
no, he's saying on the album.
So-
Oh, on the album. Oh, I think it meant on his
Why didn't he do,
presentation.
like a B-side or something?
I think it's just like, you know when you go, like, when you listen to really, really loud music and then you like go somewhere silent, it's like, the silence is kind of different.
That's true also. So you're saying,
Like I still take the experience of being in a place, like listening to like these loud sounds, and then I take whatever that's done structurally to my body to the new silence that we've been in. So
Mhm.
like, so I would say like that silence is definitely different from like the silence in this room. Like, and it's not even that like I'm just listening to different like dead air, like in different rooms. I'm saying that like I've like structurally been changed in some way, and like that affects the way like this
Mhm.
silence is being perceived by me.
so context is definitely a huge factor.
Yeah, are
How
we
we
like
perceive
stuck
it.
on this definition? Cause like it doesn't, it sounds like we're all saying that like it's super subjective, but it doesn't take into account like.
No, you don't have to stay stuck on this. You could like create your own definition, but I want you to realize that it's hard to create just one definition for what music really is.
I think, I don't think this is a bad definition.
That you like this one?
I think we could improve it and probably specify a little bit more for some of the cases that we're talking about for sure, but I don't think I don't think that's a bad definition.
So do you think the sound of nature is music? Cause that totally falls under that.
Well, it wouldn't be vocal
Would
or
it be
instrumental
vocal?
sounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So as we said with the car alarm, does that count as instrumental or?
the car alarm can count. as
Yeah.
instrumental.
So can sounds of birds also?
I mean, like.
I don't know if
Yes.
I'd call that an instrument in the way that we classify instruments. It's an instrument of like moving and getting transportation, but I don't think we would call that an instrument in
But if you think
the
of
way
like
we
how much like,
what
A lot
we
of,
want.
like,
Lorenzo, what do you have to say?
Oh, but here's the thing though, you can use anything, even if it's not an instrument, it can accidentally be used as an instrument to play something musical, like, I can use a car alarm to play, Bach's Wieder's Toccata. I mean, if I use a car alarm to play Wieder's Toccata, is it music? Wieder's Toccata is music, but the thing it's being played on isn't an instrument, so then it's not music.
Yeah, I was thinking about like, so you have this sound and sometimes it makes you feel something. But then there's like ways in which you can recover that sound or acquire it. Maybe you compiled recordings and compose things, right? So you didn't use a direct instrument, but you still drew it out. Like, so one thing I thought about musical creation is you're kind of drawing out something and maybe a feeling, but you use different like auditorial artifacts and stick them together and maybe it's unintentional, but maybe you also had some intention and you had your own convention for this kind of sound makes me feel, it feels like a hug versus this sound feels, makes me feel the loss of a loved one or something.
Okay, so for your definition, it doesn't have to have the intent of emotion as long as
Yeah, I mean,
you feel some sort of emotion as a listener.
right, I mean, it's sort of like, well, I think certain sounds can still be beautiful just as way certain visual experiences can be beautiful, but then there's kind of like certain visual experiences are art because there was this intent by it. So maybe we just call something music because it was put together by intent, or we think it was put together by intent. And it's beautiful either way, if it was accidental or it was put by intent, but then we say it's music because there's this intention behind it. And perhaps there's this hidden meaning, and we have to learn what the author meant by it. Maybe that kind of,
Yeah, so it's music is interpretational.
yeah.
I just like, I like to use the word convention, cause like, I feel like that first definition that was on the board, just like, it was like one specific convention of what music is. And I think that is like, in like the order, in like the structure of like, what we're like describing as music, I think convention, style, these things like come later. Or like what, like even like what a specific culture would denote and designate as music comes later than like, I don't know if we've really like come to like what music is before we understand like
Yeah,
how music has been like channeled.
yeah, it's sort of like, I know that like music I've heard from Japan has like when they have operas or different things, it's just in this really different pitch, you know, it's not the conventional European opera. It's sometimes people don't like it because it's almost piercing at some points, but it still has, if you kind of go with it, it just kind of takes you somewhere, but you have to kind of wait for it or something. I don't know.
Bagpipes.
So that's kind of an
Bagpipes,
interesting,
yeah.
that's kind of an interesting path to go on. I'm thinking, so like, speaking of like, so European conventional kind of thing is where our music system isn't the same as like lots of other music systems that have arisen. So like we base our things on like half step intervals where I couldn't tell you exactly or specifically, but other have like way more sub intervals where it's like with intent in that way. So like how we have generated different kind of like standards for music, or like how we have different interpretations of what it is, but it still falls under the same category through this like intent and like emotion instrument vocal.
Yeah, it's like super evolutionary. Like, I mean, I've been thinking about like songbirds. Like, I think songbirds, like, definitely throughout like evolutionary time, like the species body itself has been interpreting the world around it, whether it's like talking amongst like other songbirds or like being in a forest, like over a long period of time, like I'd say like evolutionarily, like and biologically, like that species body was interpreting its environments to create a specific sound that we can go out now and say, oh, like this is like that bird, like it is playing this song, and like if you stay long enough, you can hear like individuals within a forest if you listen and you stay with it for long enough, like you like can sense it more finely, I think.
All right. We could come back to that at the end, but right now I just want to talk about how the creator of the art influences how we perceive the music. Do you think that the artist influences how we perceive the music itself?
I think it can. I think so. Like, if you hear a piece of music and you felt some way, and I think that's like a valid thing you're drawing from the music. But also when maybe an artist goes like on an interview, it's like, oh, this is what I meant by the song, and you're like, oh, that's interesting, and then now you're kind of perceived with like, oh wait, so you kind of have that bias. So I think it can. That's my thought.
Does anyone feel like music is just music outside of the creator?
Is that one more time?
Does anyone feel like music can just be its individual thing and the creator does not affect how we perceive that music?
Well, I think in some ways it can be, but I don't think it can be separated from who performs the music. Because if it's a singer, they're gonna add a distinctness with their voice. If it's even people playing instruments, they play them differently. And so I think that colors the way that we perceive the music, and the creator certainly does. But I think it could even be I think that it could, to a certain extent, we could definitely have a different opinion of the music. If, for example, we didn't know like who the creator was at all, we had no idea about them, we just heard the music, then we wouldn't have that influence. But I think if we do know things about the music, how it was composed, things about the creator, the work and whatnot, I think that will almost always color the way that we perceive the music.
Yeah.
And this is a song that was released about 2-ish years ago. And this man went on to actually murder people.
Oh.
After this song was released. So does that context of who he is change the music?
Sure.
So after
Yeah.
the fact.
Yeah, after that.
I think it can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't listen to
Yeah.
Kanye anymore for like basically the same reason, yeah. Like, I love it, I
Mhm.
love its music, but like, I will do it in principle.
What about when Jesus 2 comes out?
Oh.
What if it's fire? What if it's fire?
That's
Will you listen to it?
It's hard, I mean, no, probably not, yeah.
So You could be.
I might pirate it. Yeah, I might pirate it.
You don't wanna-
Like, I won't like.
You don't wanna
support
give
it
them
to,
any
like Spotify and stuff. You know?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, yeah. I probably just-
So you can enjoy the music, but the
What's
way
it-
that we perceive the artist can also affect the way that we ourselves listen to the music and understand the music, and that can make it bad. So in your case, Kanye, like,
Well,
do
I
you
guess-
still enjoy his music?
I guess like even like I do in like some ways. Like now, like I'll listen to like Yeezus and like I find that like now I hate like the lyrics more. Like I think they're clever, but like I just like hate the message more now that like he's like gone and like been a weird person
Yeah.
in public. And then like I tried like listening to his like most recent like EP. And it was like this. It was like I got murder on my mind. It was like I think about killing people, and it's like it's weird. It's weird to like put that energy in the world. To like to channel like the sound or to channel like the world in this way, and then to like release whatever you're holding inside of you in like this very like violent way.
Well, I also think, I think it's really is interesting of hearing this story, because I hadn't heard, I don't really know much about this, but like that, and then so I wonder what the reaction was to people like, oh, okay, so you know this story, but what about when it just came out in the first place?
That's what I'm saying.
Or
We don't think
or
much
like
of
all
this,
the other
right?
songs
Like-
that talk about that talk about things like that, and then
Mm-hmm.
and then now they're like, oh, well, this guy actually did get charged a little bit later with this, and it's like, well, you know, the whole time it should have been, sending an alarm to you maybe or
Yeah.
whatever.
But what we're saying, I think
Like if you're not gonna support it in the beginning,
this
if you can
seems
support it in the beginning, I don't see why.
this seems wrong though, because this seems like an ad hominem fallacy. Basically, we're not looking at if we look at music as an argument, if we look at music as some sort of argument and we detract from it because of whatever the composer did,
Well,
that sort of
I mean-
seems like an ad hominem fallacy.
I mean, I kind of two views. I mean, there are things about it we can objectively value just because of rhythm. Those things appear in any other kind of music, right? I mean, just because he uses a certain rhythm, well, it doesn't get corrupted because he used it or something, right? But also with, I guess what color says is it might be communicating an actual intention versus like an actual argument, kind of. And so it's sort of like, this guy is actually explaining his intention, his intent, and I mean, it's kind of like, it's an expression of his intent, so it might be, I don't know if it is, but that's sort of what we might be bothered by a little bit, not necessarily that.
Not because of its
Yeah.
aesthetic value, but because.
Yeah, it might still, I mean, there might be objective reasons in terms of rhythm or how he
Yeah.
put lyrics together that we can think of as really clever and kind of interesting, but it's still at the same time, if he is really explaining his intent, or it seems to justly color it, or at least does that make sense? I mean, does that seem right?
Okay, suppose I don't support NASA, and NASA says the world is round, the world is, the world is, when I mean the world is round, it's spheroid or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
Spherical, yeah.
Yeah, like sphere, like, yeah,
Yeah, it's not a sphere, but it's spherical.
yeah, there's
Does
this,
okay, since I don't trust NASA, since I don't support NASA, does that mean what they're saying?
well,
isn't-
no, I mean, it's.
No, I know.
Yeah, I know, yeah, I guess, what I was saying is that if they're actually like explaining their intent, I mean, it's kind of like we're judging the content of what they're saying, what their intent is, not necessarily their argument based on their character, right? You get their character from their intent, but the fact is they're actually kind of giving an exposition of their character or something. Does that make sense? Or
And in a similar light to the last song, much more well-known person I think here, Charles Manson. He used to make music. He was actually friends with some of the Beach Boys.
Oh, shit.
Who was that? Is that a murder? Was he a murderer?
Yeah, so he had like a cult.
And this song is
Who's that?
titled "Don't Do Anything Illegal." But it's music.
Don't do
You said it, you guys-
Beware of the eagle.
Is
So-
it bad to enjoy this music?
Well,
Wait, are you saying it's bad because he made it?
Yes,
And then he was a murderer?
because of
Hmm.
the creator of the music. Is it bad to enjoy this music? Let's say Hitler made music. Would it be? He made art.
I
Is
feel
it bad
like
to enjoy Hitler's art?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know if it necessarily makes a thing bad or evil, because I probably it probably has its own intrinsic worth and value, but I think to me it would be strange if people are like listening to this music knowing
Yeah.
who the person is. So it's more, it would be strange to me, but I don't know if like it makes it bad music per se.
so I think like, oh, sorry, were you gonna?
Deeper.
So,
Yeah.
Going on, I guess on that, the thinking it's like strange that people would enjoy that. Who's that? He's the guy who got killed last year. Triple X.
XXXTentacion, yeah.
Him. So, like, there was a whole big thing about like domestic violence and stuff, and like after he died, everyone was talking about it again. But like, lots of people still listen to his music and like defend his music, and I guess it's like maybe not as severe as like genocide or killing people but like, oh, I don't know where I'm going with
Yeah,
this.
it was
But, like,
proven that he was sexually assaulting women.
yeah, so and it's like stuff like that, or like I don't know if we want to go like Chris Brown or something, like people like that who make music, but also are like doing these things and people still listen to their music.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that it's like strange that people are enjoying that, but they're still like very successful. So
Yeah, I like that example, the one about Chris Brown, because I still would appreciate different songs that I've heard from Chris Brown. But that's why I was trying to point out that, I think that, I don't know if it necessarily because I think the music on its own can still be good, it still can be judged on its own content. But I think a lot of times what we know about the creators will definitely affect the way we think about it. And I think that was the original question. That's what I was trying, that's
Has
just what I was
anyone
trying
heard
to
of R. Kelly and what happened to him?
say.
He also released like a whole 19-minute track admitting everything. No, I'm for real. It came out a few months ago. No, seriously. I think you can look it up on YouTube too.
You guys see the video of the guy from House of Cards?
Yeah, that was so creepy. No, Kevin Spacey. That was so
Yeah, that was
creepy.
weird as fuck.
So for those of you who don't know, so Kevin Spacey was the main actor on House of Cards, and he was charged with like sexual assault, and then they completely like fired him from the show. So the next season was like based on the wife, and then Kevin Spacey put out a video on YouTube
Like
in
the day
character
before he
as the guy,
That was
because
so creepy.
so in the show they like killed him off so that he can get fired. But then he made a video in character on YouTube saying like oh, you think you can get rid of me, and just like weird things in character as like, it was so
That
weird.
was extremely creepy.
It was so creepy.
That was a great
Preparing
show.
salsa or something. Like,
Yeah, he was like cooking something, and oh my goodness, I was like,
I don't know if I should skip this part, because it's more just presenting you with some ideas, but sound versus lyricism. Which do you or we value more? So I think this part's a lot more subjective than what we've been talking about. But which do you guys value more? Or are they both equal to
I
you?
like sound, I prefer sound.
Sound.
And I think that traditionally people, a lot of the music would have no lyrics. So I think in Western music, lyricism is more of a more recent thing with symphonies and whatnot. And then even with operas, a lot of them would be in languages that people didn't understand for a long time. Or church music would be in Latin, and people might not have known Latin. So I think that traditionally there was a lot more of an emphasis on sound than lyricism.
Do you guys believe that poetry can classify as music or slam poetry?
So that's where I was about to take it. I was about to take it to, like, I definitely agree that sound is more important than lyricism, especially because if we like take that sound element out, well, now we have vocals, and vocals are, they're giving emotion and their rhythm or whatever, so like, okay, is that music, just speaking is music because it meets our Google definition that we had. But at the same time, it's like the sound is way more important as an element of music.
Well, what about rap?
Exactly. Rap really wouldn't be much without lyrics. It would just be continual beats, just very repetitive.
I was wondering if we could like have a clearer distinction, because I mean, I've heard like church choirs where it's just pure voices. I mean, they're using their
voice to
vocal
create
cords and there's no other instruments. And does that mean, what exactly do you mean?
Well, I
Lyrics
would
means
say-
there's like actually saying specific things.
Yeah. Like there's meaning you can,
Right.
like, okay, not meaning in the sense that like you can get like emotion out of it, but like you can, shit. That is actually,
The lyrics help to convey the emotion that is initially created with the sound. Please. Alright. Moods. With lyrics it is more obvious, but why do certain sounds make us feel certain moods? What do you guys feel right now? You're like ready to go, right?
Oh, I'm not ready with that.
Why?
Wait, what happened?
Alright.
That was a banger.
But
this will.
This will make you cry.
now we're feeling a little different, right? It's the same instrument. So, what makes those two make us feel entirely different ways?
The key, definitely.
But
Yeah, but what?
Yeah,
but
like-
why? Like,
they,
why does
Yeah.
that key make us feel? Like, why are we feeling emotion from
Mhm.
that? As opposed to like when the car alarm went off initially, we weren't feeling as strong of an emotion. It was, we thought like maybe that's music, but we're not feeling such intense emotion.
I feel like
I don't know. I think about this all the time because it's just like it's strange because I don't know. It's weird because like there's like one thing that particularly comes to mind is like so like one thing that I was first thinking of is like, okay, maybe complexity, maybe you're like, oh, you have different like different like scales and different tones and like you have bass tones and treble tones, whatever. But I can also think of songs that are very simple but also can bring out strong emotions as well. So I don't know.
I feel like some of the sounds that you said don't make us feel emotional do, like some arbitrary sounds like alarms are created certain ways to spark certain emotions. Like my alarm makes me fucking mad. Car alarms make me really mad. They're probably created a certain way to spark a reaction. So
To get your attention.
So speaking of alarms, so then I think, now I'm thinking of like the conditioned reaction kind of, so like when your alarm goes off in the morning, it's like the most dreadful sound in the world.
Yeah.
So like that's like a conditioned response. So are these like the same thing? We know, like, okay, this is a sad piano song because we are conditioned to know that this key is sad and this tempo is sad, or is there something deeper to that? Like why is that associated, or why did we originally associate it that way?
So do you think someone who had never heard music before, let's say they just grew up their entire life, and they heard this song, they didn't look at the YouTube title, and they just heard this, would they feel sadness just by hearing this without any knowledge of what music is?
I think so.
Well, I think maybe they'd be a little melancholy, but I don't think like you could evoke sadness if they'd never heard music and they didn't have like the evolutionary context that like we in this room have, like right now.
Of like signaling.
So
Yeah, exactly.
when you say evolutionary context, do you mean like
Culturally,
okay.
like one, like our ability to like perceive sound like biologically, but then like cultural as like an evolutionary adaptation, and then like coming up to like society, and then like family, all the way up to you know,
Rare.
like in like the progression of things.
So-
I think like I think it's like frequency, like vibration, like an A is gonna make like it's gonna make a certain sound like go through the air, and like that's gonna make me feel like A-like. But then like, you know, D and C, but then you put it all together and like you have harmonies, and the way you get through a certain piece of music can change drastically. Based on like literally how we're being touched by the music, because like the hammer, like the three bones in your ear, like they're making like sound is like touch. Which I think I was thinking like earlier, this is my last point. Like there was like, I think in like popular music today, like we still are seeing the expression of like deeply rooted trauma, and like the ways that like the centralization of our culture like creates an in-group and an out-group, like it oppresses people, and there are oppressors, and some people still benefit from that. Like, even though somebody like Chris Brown or Kanye West can be like, they are black men, so like they both are oppressed based on the color of their skin and like their situation like as a group over time, but also they are men, so they also like benefit from like the patriarchy over time. So, and like the way we consume music is also centralized around like deeply rooted violence and trauma over time, like starting with like a patriarchal society from like Christ probably, but then closer. Yeah.
The theme of trauma, do you also see other themes in music like love? Or would you see trauma as, is that like an overarching?
I think it's something that we have to deal with like in like the most like derived form of our culture. Because like
To deal with? Do we have to deal with love?
yeah, I think so. For me, like cosmologically, like there is just like there's that there's that cosmic vibrations happening always now, and like from that like creation happens. You were saying, you kept using the word creator, which I like who the creator is and like what maybe their intention was. Like I don't know if like philosophy ever goes into like philosophy of religion where people like identify with like a cosmic creator, but like if I like talked about like the entirety of being like in an absolute sense, then I would say yes, like there is God or nature creates, and then along the way we come to where we are now based on like what's happened from like the very root of creation. So I think like yes, like love starts at the root of creation and brings forth everything that comes after it, personally. So yeah, I think we do have to deal with it. But then there's also that perversion of like the best parts of the world. It's like we polluted our lakes and we've cut down trees and we've like harmed like what I feel like evolution in an evolutionary context, systems will become more diverse over time. And that because they become more diverse, they become more resilient, which makes me believe that like the world is taking care of itself. It takes care of itself. But we can thwart that and we can pervert that way of being that is so pure from what I believe is a cosmic creator. And when we pervert that, we miss the mark from like what our true nature is, what like we can continually sense in the world. And I don't know if I like got to a good point there, but I think that's like, these are all the thoughts that have been flying around my head while we've been talking.
Wait, what's your definition of evolution?
My definition?
Yes.
Alright, I want to show you guys a topic. Alright, I just want to show you guys an example of how lyricism can add to music, and I want you guys to tell me, like, can these ideas be expressed with using only sound? Or is the lyricism necessary? Okay, I can't get to the point where I want to get to right now because, yeah.
Wait, what the? What the?
Who's bad?
So suppose that this was only sound, would these same ideas about and friend be able to be expressed using only sound, or is the lyricism absolutely necessary for this?
I think maybe.
Body with others, her sister and mother, and 500 families. And will she remember me? 50 years later, I wish I could save her in some sort of time
sound conveys what he's feeling, but I think the lyricism is necessary for the context here. Would you guys agree?
I think so too. I think it goes with the expression and intent
Mhm.
part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like if you just heard like just the sound, then you would. So like I feel like music, music is there, and I don't think it's like there's one specific way of interpreting that's the absolute best interpretation. I think it's everybody's own experiences that are like, okay, that's how I draw from it, but then the context of like the lyrics and the artist can like refine maybe how you feel about it.
This is an example of how lyrics can sometimes contradict what we hear. Because this is a song that's actually about drug addiction and a lot of issues related with this and girlfriend. But from the sound, we kind of feel upbeat, very happy. That's just trying to present another idea to you guys. So that's all in reference to drugs and the issues that he's going through with his girlfriend, saying, I want something else to get me through this.
Wait, but it isn't conveyed in the rhythm or beat because we have a negative association with drugs. Plus also they don't depict drugs in here, so what the heck?
Yeah. That's just, I'm just presenting the ideas of how sound and lyricism can contradict each other. Is there a science to music? So can we create the perfect song? If we mix the perfect rhythm, the perfect beats together, all the right words together, can we create the perfect song?
No.
Too
Okay.
subjective.
Personally, I don't think so, but
Well, I think it'd be perfect to the person.
okay.
So it's like this song's perfect for me,
Yeah.
something like that.
Why don't I think so? I do think it's just too subjective. I think music, like we've seen from here, that everybody has a different idea of what music is to them. You know what I mean?
I don't wanna cut you off, I wanna finish.
That was the end of my
Okay, no, I really liked his point, and that's a physical, what was the word you used?
It's a lot of words.
Yeah, you did say a lot of
And
words.
it's, you're super continental, you're welcome here. It's an interaction, a physical interaction, so I feel like if I define music really specifically enough, I feel like, yeah, it is. Because then it's just about as physical of an interaction as a hammer is against your head. You know, is there a science to hammering people in the head? Well, let's see. No, I mean, it's very much, when we talk about subjective, but it's very much like, there's only one way to do it. And I guess you could, formulate the perfect position of the hammer over someone's head and the perfect velocity. Grotesque, but if you've ever taken Douglas Portmore's classes, his examples are far worse than mine. It's amazing. He was on tenure, so
So you agree that there is some sort of science to it?
yeah, because it's physical interaction.
Like objective to everybody.
I mean,
So, just to bring a little bit of like, I'm not well versed in this and I forget most of this, but like the way, so for like European music and like the half step intervals and stuff, there is like, it is really strongly rooted in math. So like, say you're like creating a scale of tones of something and you start with like a long chord and you're like just plucking it in like, a guitar or something. Like the way you reduce the length to like create the subsequent tones is like really strongly rooted in math, and it's like it happens to be what sounds good to us, which is like going on with science. Is there like a way to make a perfect song? I still don't think there's a way to make a perfect song because like we have like really subjective interpretations. of how we understand that. But I think it kind of goes with this like evolutionary idea, both biologically and like culturally, how we've gotten to this point where we really associate we find these things pleasant that are really strongly rooted in math, but also we find them pleasant for different individual reasons or different cultural reasons or whatever of why we like different music.
No, I guess I'm not sure if I'm on the right wavelength. I mean, like, I remember Cher has a song, remember how she has a song, this is a song for the lonely, and like, I thought it was it just kind of stuck in my head, because it was like a song for the lonely, and then some people have, songs that want to talk about creation. I mean, it's kind of like, for me, I thought, it's like the perfect book. I mean, there's a book, I have a math textbook and everything, and I don't really know how to compare it to my biology textbook, because they have completely different purposes. So it's like, I mean, I can see better math books than the one I have maybe, but I can't really see a better book compared to like the biology and the math textbook, because it's
So just like
judged
there's
on.
no one book to satisfy everyone,
Right.
there's no one song that can satisfy everyone.
Yeah, I mean, they're about something. Usually if it's about something, sometimes we have to like restrict it to the terms of what it's about, maybe.
So, okay, I like that. So now going off of that, could we make the perfect love song though? Like it's specifically,
That's
it's
the point too.
it's all in the same like context, it all has the same like purpose or message, like, oh, I love you so much, can we make a perfect song just like that?
Right, but then there's like, okay, maybe there's the perfect love song about, two lovers whose family led them to kill each other, and then there's the perfect
Or
song
how
about.
about, can we just make a perfect love song that everybody enjoys, that not one person says, I don't like this music? Because there's such science to it that literally every single person that hears it, just something clicks and it's like, that's good.
I remember there's,
I believe.
I feel like, I was trying to think about it.
Oh,
Like, okay, so there's this song I really like, and it has the same, it's the Cloud Atlas song, but it has like the same kind of melody, but it changes throughout the entire length. It's like 10 minutes long, and it's the same melody, but it doesn't get boring, because it starts out really soft and it gets melancholic and then it comes up. But it's sort of like, I don't really know, maybe not, I don't know. No, I don't think you can have a perfect love song. Sorry.
Moving forward, I mean, what is genre? And more importantly, how we define genres, what they are. Google definition: a category of artistic composition, as in music or literature, characterized by similarities in form, style, or subject matter. So how do we throw sounds together to be a style? Why do certain ways of hearing sounds, why can we classify them into certain groups? Eritro, do you have any ideas?
My initial thought is just like the similar like beats and rhythms. So like if you look at like an Afrocubic genre, that's like, okay, so I'm looking at like a different like groove. If I'm looking at a jazz groove, that groove is different. If I'm looking at like different genres, you have different like rhythms and different like they have similar like in each genre they all similar just like rhythm and structure, I guess.
Okay,
That's my
so
first pass.
Somewhere structurally, something has to, can lyricism play into that? Because there could be songs lyrically that are extremely similar, but sonically extremely different.
Well, is there such a thing as a conserved part of music? Like, you know how there are conserved genes? Genes that are so important that there's not that much variation between them. Like, in each species, there's a gene. A conserved gene, in other words, that it's conserved in the sense that you still have it, but there's a little tweaking.
Sorry, I don't want to say too much, but it's just, okay, so this popped in my head. So with the genre thing, because we were talking about music in different cultures, and sometimes they have different intervals and they have really different rhythms, but they still have an idea of harmony. And I was just remembering that there was this paper talking about language, and sometimes the language we use, well, some languages they thought might be shaped by the environment. Because in certain mountainous regions, you know, you need sounds to carry in a different way, so your dialect changes to communicate with it in a certain way. So, I mean, some of it could be like your environment just shapes it, and then you have your customs, and then certain sounds just become identified with traditions, and like this, you know, expression, like we have this expression for like crying, but some people have it for standing solemnly, and that's how you express your sadness, and so maybe like certain sounds kind of, that, yeah, okay, yeah, it's like that. I was just wondering, like, maybe that's how, like, some genres get formed. It's sort of, you can't really, it might be, you could have two genres that are comparable, like, from one perspective, maybe it's like, you know, a romance song, love songs from different cultures, but then they end up like, this sounds like a comedic soundtrack or something for me, and then, yeah, so maybe it's kind of not entirely subjective. But some of it is objective, because there are harmonies that we can physically observe that seem to be universal, and yeah, but anyway, that's all. Sorry.
I think we already covered this a lot, but if there's anything anyone else wants to say about this, why we all have different music tastes. Is it just environmental factors shaping it? Are we born with our music tastes?
Kate's pretty certain about the music taste. They just think they're into that.
Oh.
But do you think you're born with it, or like
That's,
where you?
So an online comment saying in the environment, like
The
around you.
environment,
Yeah.
I think you can adapt, like I have like, just personally was taking a lot of music and I was like, I want to get into new genres and I really do eventually like fall in love with them. Like, that's how I got into death metal.
Mhm.
I just was like listening to enough rock music where I was like, well, this sounds like garbage, but let's see what I'll like. And like, I actually would like go through like half an album's worth and be like, no, this is ass. Like, I can't get into this. And so eventually, like, I found a band that like I really like.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, so okay, this is just totally like personal experience, but sometimes I'll have listened to a song or an album and I won't think anything of it, like I'll be like, oh, that's total ass, but then I come back to a song and I'm like, I really like this, and I keep listening to it and I like it more. I'm wondering if familiarity has some way of like now that it's in your head, you like it just because you know it, like you're familiar with it.
And so repetition
Yeah.
can play a factor.
I think, I don't know where I've heard this, I feel like I've just kind of heard this around, but like, have you ever heard someone say like, oh, it takes like 9 samples of a food to acquire the taste of it? I feel like it could be that with music too, like, you could just listen to it enough where you're like, you know what, this is
So like,
appetizing.
yeah, so the more we listen, the more we
You
kind
get a
of
palate for
understand
it.
the emotions being conveyed, the more we start to enjoy what we're hearing. Alright, awesome. General question, how influential do you believe music to be? Is there power in music,
Oh, definitely.
both to yourself and to a society too? How influential can music be? Max?
So my example of this is, I'm just gonna say, imagine watching a movie where there's no music, like how like unimpactful, or I guess like say like you're supposed to have silence for this really impactful moment, but it's like there's nothing to change, or like there's supposed to be like this big crescendo and like something like really epic is happening. It's just like, so like imagine that like there's a lot of value or like power that we associate with.
Oh. It's good for like depth perception in movies too. Like we're just looking at something, like the music gives us an extra element
Right.
that we can perceive. And I think like our like inner ear systems also like help us with balance, perceiving depth and things like that. Oh.
What if music didn't exist? So some of you were saying earlier that just random occurrences could qualify as music. So if music didn't exist, would those things be able to happen? Just all the possibilities of if music didn't exist, I don't know what would happen, because music seems to just be part of life, and I think if music didn't exist, life would just be completely different. Not just like we can't hear music, like, oh well, we're just gonna go about our day. I think like the whole like space-time continuum would be like
Black hole, just like.
yeah.
It'd
So
be
it's-
like,
that's just something to think about, like kind of wild.
on my TV, black and white.
Super philosophical question. And then this is pretty much the end of my thing. And I gave you those papers at the beginning. I'm gonna take 4 song suggestions and you're gonna write down your ratings of those songs privately. You're not gonna share those yet.
Uh-huh.
So I need 4 song suggestions.
I like it like that.
Oh, God, no.
I want.
All right.
I like it by Cardi B.
Of course.
That's a funny -5.
That's a classic.
Wait, what's the scale?
1 to 10.
You can use points if you want.
Wait for the.
Now I like dollars, I like diamonds, I like stunning, I like shine.
Hey.
I like $1 billion bills, where's my pen?
Okay, I see you. I see you, Philip.
The ones that look like socks. I like going to the Tula. I throw rocks all in my watch. I like texts from my exes when they want a second chance. I like how we live strong. I do what they say I can. Call me Cardi, Cardi, banging body, spicy money, hot tamale,
Do you feel like that was long enough for everybody to?
That was good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That was the bell.
Everybody write down.
That rap section.
Write down your
Can't help.
rating of that one.
Oh, okay. So there's some online people who want to participate. How do you think I should do that?
They can just write their rating, I guess.
So like they're posting their ratings. Should I just like write on a separate piece of paper?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay, cool.
And then anybody else got a song that they would like? Play?
Yes.
Yes,
So
Lauren?
yeah, so can we just say our like favorite?
Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, no, I was about to
Concerto number 1.
NHL.
Tchaikovsky. Piano's Concerto number 1. Oh wait, let me spell it.
Yeah.
No, I was like, oh wait, hold up. How do you even spell that?
Yeah. Or Chanel the Frank.
Oh, it's spelled with a T, okay.
It's alright.
Balls in the.
Lorenzo, one of the people online, loves the person you're bringing up. I don't even know how to pronounce the name of this person you're bringing up, but
I wouldn't have spelled that right.
Oh,
yep. Okay, rate the song.
like listening to it while I'm sitting directing, like in my room.
You felt like that was long enough for.
Yeah.
Alright. Yeah, so write down your opinion of that one. And 2 more songs.
March to the scaffold.
Mark?
March to the scaffold. Yeah, it's a classic. Yeah, that one.
Alright.
Go up to 1, I think.
Like 1 minute.
Yeah, because it starts out really slow. For it, for it.
19th century.
I'm sorry, go up to 2. That was rude. I forgot. Oh, there we go.
Close enough.
Alright.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was good enough then?
Yeah, that's good enough.
Alright.
Sorry. about
How
that.
about "Love" by Kendrick Lamar?
Let's see.
I haven't heard this one.
Kendrick Lamar's my Lord and Savior. Putting that out there.
Loving us. All of us.
Give me a run for my money. There's nobody, no one ever me. So give me a run for my money.
Yeah.
Doing it, huh? All right. And
Well, I was about to say no because it's a full song. No, I'm just messing. With you. No, I'm messing. But just my love for that song.
all right, I'm just gonna go around the room. We're gonna see everybody's opinion. Well, the first one was I Like It.
Yeah, by Cardi B.
All right.
Okay.
Let's see the ratings here, Mark.
I gave it a 1.
One. All right.
I
Wow.
don't want to disclose my answer.
You
Keep
don't
me
have
out of
to.
the sample.
You don't have to.
I give it a 7.
Seven.
That makes me feel
I
better.
give it a 7.
You, Sam?
5 told me it exists.
I put it as a 10.
And, wow.
6.
6.
Come on, it's Cardi B.
And perfection.
I'm down.
Second song, long name guy. T something.
TCHAI something. Yeah. Okay.
It's not gonna happen. No, all right, Mark.
I gave it a 7.
8. I went 3, it's just too boring.
7.
9.
5.
Oh, also, I'm so sorry. There's 2 more for both of them.
Oh,
So for the I Like It, there is a 5 and a 2. And then for the other one, there is a 10 and a 7.
10.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, if anyone wants to add these up while I'm doing this, that'd be very appreciated.
I think Lorenzo on it.
next one, Mark.
Lorenzo, are you on it? Awesome.
41, 51, 41.
Uh,
I gave that an 8.
8.
7. 8. 2.
9.
9, 8, and 8.
Oh,
2.
See?
You guys are all wrong.
What?
Only I hold. Subjective.
Oops.
I gave it a 9.
I could give it a score. So, next.
I'm gonna count that for you. Or, you know,
This feel like a 5.
alright, yeah, that's fair. Alright, Lorenzo?
For the last one.
7.
7?
8.
6.
11.
11?
10.
And what are the others?
Oh yeah, sorry. 5 and 2. Thanks for reminding me.
Wait, were there extras for this one or did we?
No, we got-
Yeah, I already got those. Yeah.
9.
9. Alright, so did anyone do the number crunching on any of these?
or you get like an average number.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, average divided by
My TI.
how many people? So
Well, it's also 5.
One was 51, and the first one was 51.
51.
I'm still calculating the next one, though.
well, because not everybody voted on all of them, right? So you have
No,
to.
we got.
Yeah, but I for the no vote, I just did 5.
Okay.
Just 'cause it's a no.
Okay.
Well, you add 5 to I Like
So
It.
61.
For me, for this, it's like, I can do some class.
I don't think it's
boring.
right.
It's like nothing,
It's
nothing.
good enough.
Yeah, like some class.
So I think the T1
I don't
is
like the
66.
really stuff. I
66.
feel like March
Yeah.
the scaffold
Is it?
is more
I said
dynamic,
61,
like it
but-
varies a lot, and
March.
it's interesting.
I'm not a math.
15, 20,
Wait, aren't you a business major?
46.
Yeah, but I'm not a math.
I'm a math major. I'm not doing this. I suck with mental math.
I just sort it and take the median. Yeah.
The median. Oh, that's not accurate though. If you might as well have the mean to your disposal.
Mean is, it's kind of too, it's too susceptible to outliers, right?
20,
Because I mean.
But what outliers can you have?
30.
Yeah, I mean, like for instance.
Well,
One of them, like,
7.
I would say 2 is
Also, we don't even have like a large enough sample size to even like do anything.
So,
Question mark?
what does this mean? Does this mean that the second song we heard by the man with the ridiculous name is the best song?
No,
No,
That doesn't mean.
no.
no.
Well, first of all, we don't have a large enough sample size, but still, I don't think so. Even if we had everybody vote, I still don't think
But if
so.
I was just trying to please everyone in this room, should I put that song on?
Utilitarian.
There it is.
This is just, but the last part was just a fun exercise, just to see how all our opinions.
I wonder though, I wonder, does gender influence like your perception of the song? Like, well, like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so, because of the way that I perceive vocals, I typically prefer male voices.
Damn.
Just the way that I like it just sounds better to me. Like.
No, like,
Damn.
no, like,
Damn.
like, no, I'm just wondering.
No, that's a good question.
Yeah, no, I think it.
No, like, if you
Quick-
know that this song is about, like, let's say it's about sex or something, like objectifying stuff, and you're a woman, would you rate it low?
Sure, yeah, I think that's, I think we have more reason to believe that.
So,
I think
okay,
if a woman objectified a
Different
man in a
question.
song, like all the men would be like, fuck that.
Yeah. So yeah, because context we said can play a huge role in that.
so just to like kind of fill the room, when we were rating these, did we rate them based on whether or not we liked it or whether or not we like thought there was artistic value to it? Because I'm really interested.
I was
Well,
doing
that's
explanation.
broken.
Yeah, so how did
Based
it?
on-
Yeah, I think it's based on just like.
So everyone just did it based on how they liked it. Okay.
This is wrong.
That's really
That's
important.
what I said.
I just got me.
Obviously, like we didn't have a lot of context here, so we were just going probably purely off the way it sounded and how we took in the lyrics as we were hearing it.
When people show me songs, I usually like them better.
Yeah.
Or if I'm drunk.
Yeah. That's- And these are just some quotes from some favorite or famous philosophers.
Do you wanna post that in the Slack?
Yes.
Like later after this? After this, can you post it in the Slack?
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There's geometry in the humming of the strings.
Yeah, I feel it.
Spacing of the spheres.
I'm with you there. I'm with you. I'm with you.
We got Plato.
Yes.
I think Nietzsche.
Music is a whole lot.
Nietzsche.
Give soul to the universe, wings to the mind, light to the imagination, and charm and gaiety to life and to everything.
Everything.
I can see Aristotle just doing like that too. I just.
Then we got your boy Gottfried.
Leibniz, inventor of possible world, thank God.
Okay, yeah, so he obviously thinks there's a silence to music. Music is the hidden arithmetical exercise.
Oh.
Hey, Andrew, we could party.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That is up in mind, unconscious, that is calculated.
Interesting.
We have your boy William.
Yeah, my main man. Not
The
sure.
venue is allowed by the dancing masters themselves to be perfection of all dancing. I don't even know what that means, so. Disregard that quote.
Oh, your boy, the man.
Of course.
He's coming up all the time.
Of course.
Oh, of course.
Even the songs of birds, which we can bring under no musical rule, seems to have more freedom and therefore more taste than the song of a human being, which is produced in accordance with all the rules of music. For we very much sooner weary of the latter, if if it is repeated often and at length.
So
he has
I
to
prefer
taste,
silence.
it doesn't require taste.
So he's kind of saying too, like, that random occurrences in nature can be music and, in his opinion, even
More
make
speak,
it
more beautiful, and more pleasurable.
He's kind of trying to sound a little smart here.
I feel like it's sort of like
Okay.
a general rule with art that with art, you have this kind of general rule. It's always like you can go back to it and pull out something new. And Same with music. Wow.
We have Arthur here. Oh man.
Fucking Schopenhauer.
The inexpressible depth of music, so easy to understand and yet so inexplicable, is due to the fact that it reproduces all the emotions of our innermost being, but entirely without reality and remote from its pain. Music expresses only the quintessence of life and its events, never these themselves. I like that one a
I
lot.
like
Yeah, Nietzsche has a very interesting take, because
some people.
he says,
I'm lying.
without music, life would be a mistake.
Yes.
There-
That's
yeah.
all he says.
Done.
So,
It's a good point.
rip deaf people.
Sounds like-
Oh, that's awful.
Then we got Theodore here.
Young Thug? No shit.
They.
He's a great philosopher, he has an opinion on these things.
He was showing his early work and all their wealth by classifying them with the music, historical cliche, as late romantic, post-Wagnerian. One might just as well dispose of Beethoven as a late classicist,
Basically, I think he's going against classifying music, classifying it, like dissecting it, because in classifying it, you're sort of like this. Well,
Okay.
It's also saying words like Wagnerian.
And I'm gonna post this link in the Slack too.
Awesome.
guys.
Alright, thanks, Andy.
Awesome.
it was good.
So what happened to the pizza? Did that not?
So, Nathaniel accidentally put in the wrong address. So then the order was put in backlog a bunch, but it's all good.
I was more disappointed.
Oh, so there's no pizza today, or?
Yeah, because yeah, unfortunately not, but that's okay. There'll be some next time though. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, I'll see ya.
See you later.